Hello, and welcome to So You Think You Can Rule Persia, the podcast where we rate and review all the kings of Persia from Diocles to Yazdegerd III. I am Sariel, and my pronouns are they, them.
And I'm Umberto, and my pronouns are he, him. So, hello everybody, and welcome to episode 52, Vonones II, where we get to find out if this random old guy that was elected to be king is gonna do a good job.
It took me a minute to remember who we were talking about. I'm like,
Yes.
where did we leave off?
It was a random old guy across the street that the nobles said, yeah, sure,
You will do.
So, thoughts, Sariel? Do you expect great things from Vonones, or do you expect not much?
Honestly, no, not much, really.
Not much?
Plus,
Okay.
you have mentioned that, we will eventually get out of this, period of rapidly succeeding monarchs,
Yes.
Or, rapidly changing. But you also mentioned we're not quite there yet, so... I don't know, he's also old, which, probably, he won't have that many years to make any important changes. Was it the nobles who, chose him again?
The nobles did choose him.
Yeah, so, I don't, we know what the nobles do. They mess up everything, and then they're like, oh, we changed our mind. So, yeah, no, I'm not super,
that happens.
super hopeful.
Okay, well, let's see if you're right or not. We'll figure out if Vonones was worth being around or if he's just a blip. So, to start, we can just review what happened in the last episode. Last episode was Vologases II.
Mm-hmm.
So, if you remember, he had a civil war with his brother, Vardanes. They fought a bit back and forth. Eventually, Vologases won because his brother ended up mysteriously shot to death during a hunt. It happens, who knows. He had to fight a Roman usurper that was financed by Claudius to try and take the throne, but Vologases managed to win. He made a wonderful relief that got eroded into nothing, and then he died. And then after that, Vonones was elected. We're not sure if Vologases was murdered or just got sick and died. We decided that probably he got more sick, but with the nobles, you never know. We'll see if anything in Vonones' life tells us anything about Vologases' fate. So we'll find that out. So let's start with Vonones. Who is he? Where does he come from? How did he get old? He's clearly done something right.
Mm-hmm.
So he's a member of the Arsacid dynasty, which we haven't really encountered before. And he is connected to the royal line, but we're not really sure where exactly he stands on the family tree. Because he could be a distant member of the dynasty, just a random distant cousin that got chosen. It happens. They have lots of random distant cousins.
I mean, if you're going to put it that way, I'm sure we can find some sort of relation.
Yeah, he's there. But a possibility is that he's a lot closer, actually, and that since he was made vassal king of Media Atropatene, which is roughly Azerbaijan, modern day, thereabouts. It's possible that he was a relative of Artabanus III, who was also king of Media Atropatene and, we're told, gave the kingdom to one of his relatives. So, given the age of Vonones II, it might be that he was the brother of Artabanus III and just was happy with ruling a little vassal kingdom for a while. So that was quite nice. He didn't really seemed to have engaged in any massive rebellions and did what he could. Also, this means that we're now in the 50s AD and he was probably born in the 20s BC, which makes him quite aged. But he can do this. He can make it. But yeah, so what was his life like? What happened to him and where did he come from? Well, as we mentioned 3 episodes ago, Artabanus III was formerly king of Media Atropatene. He became king of Parthia, and then, somebody needed to remain this vassal king, so he apparently appointed his brother to be that. So that is where Vonones got it. But an interesting question here is, what is the deal with Atropatene? Because it was sort of a middle weird area between Armenia and Parthia.
Mm-hmm.
It's where Mark Antony invaded at the beginning of the century. Well, at the end of the last century, really. And yeah, it's sort of connected to Armenia. They were once both ruled by the same king. What is the deal with Atropatene? Well, it has quite an old story behind it because it was founded in the aftermath of Alexander the Great's conquest and got its name from the satrap who was just ruling there, who was a guy named Atropates, who had governed the region under Darius III. And Alexander thought that it was too much work to replace the guy, so yeah, sure, you can keep your satrapy. This is going to be the bit of Media that's ruled by Atropates.
Mm-hmm.
But later on, when Alexander's empire exploded into a million pieces and everybody killed themselves over it,
Well,
which happened, Atropatene sort of just drifted away and did its own thing because nobody really cared enough to conquer it, and it was safely established with an old satrap that knew what he was doing, so it just became its own little kingdom and remained basically independent of everybody until the Parthians arrived on the scene a few centuries later, which is kind of a weird thing. Just interesting to see. But yeah, then we saw when Mithridates I arrives, he sort of submits a bunch of these local kingdoms to the Parthian Empire, and Atropatene is one of them. So there we go. But as we saw, Atropatene doesn't really become fully subject to Parthia because it has its own separate diplomacy, because it does strike a deal with Mark Antony after his invasion to try and give him some tribute. This doesn't last very long because they're, overthrown quickly, but they have enough autonomy that they can do stuff for themselves. So that's quite nice. But that was all under the old system before Artabanus III, who then decided that he'd had enough of all these vassal kings doing everything on their own, and he wanted to bring them closer into the empire and make sure that they're all at least governed by Arsacids, and then after that, they should all be, extensions of the kingdom, not independent bits of it.
Mm-hmm.
So over the next few decades, Vonones governs his little border kingdom and sees the slow centralization of the empire under Artabanus. Doesn't work great all the time, as we saw the nobles do tend to rebel, and that's a mess. But at least, the kingdom gets closer and closer to the king itself.
Mm-hmm.
But once Artabanus dies, the nobility fractures into a million tiny pieces, and everybody is arguing against who they're going to lead. So on the one side, we have the western-facing nobles, which are generally the pro-Roman side, and are led by the Karen, or Karen family, which has supported Vonones I, Vardanes I, and the usurper Mithridates, which Gotarzes defeated later on.
Mm-hmm.
And on the other side, we have the eastern faction, which is led by the Suren family, and they supported Artabanus III and Gotarzes II. It's also possible that a member of the Suren family made his own Indo-Parthian empire in the Indus Valley. We're not sure if they were part of that family, but there was an Indo-Parthian empire doing its own thing.
Okay.
They have their own fun stories. We have no sources on them, but they're around. They're doing stuff.
We have a rumor of someone starting a startup business, like next to the big business.
Yes, pretty much. It's a branch office.
Yeah.
And yeah, we mainly just know because we have coins. The guy calls himself King of Kings.
Oh.
It's written in Parthian script, so I guess probably something like that. But yeah, it's a different King of Kings.
Huh.
And then finally we have a third faction, which is the faction of Hyrcania, which is founded by Gotarzes II, because he was for a long time a semi-independent ruler in Hyrcania south of the Caspian Sea, and that adds a third faction to the whole mess because now you have East, West, and Center all arguing about who should be king, or at least how the empire should be governed. The question is, where does Media Atropatene and Vonones fit into all of this? Well, we don't know, is the answer.
Great. I was like, okay, now we go back to what we started with. Tell me, why are we talking about all of this?
The answer is, the fact that they're at the edge of the empire probably means that they could maintain themselves independent enough that they could do whatever they want without angering anybody, because they are essentially guarding the road from Armenia into Parthia. So they have this position of power where they're the ones that know where to defend everything and who to let through, who doesn't. They're important that way. But also, since they're not, fully on the west, fully on the east, or fully in Hyrcania, they don't really have any obvious sides that they're going with.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems that Vonones himself was just a loyal guy in general, and he just tends to support the king that's in charge and not really question it too much. So he is one of the nobles that aren't making a big fuss out of everything. He is just administering his tiny little kingdom and saying, I don't really care who's on the throne, just tell me what to do and I'll do it. Okay, good, thanks, bye. And yeah, he's not mentioned at all as participating in any civil wars, so again, he presumably either stayed neutral or just followed the king that was in charge and just went ahead that way. And he's only really mentioned by name when Gatarzes dies in the spring of 51.
Mm-hmm.
So he's either murdered or just dies of some sort of disease because he was quite young at the time. Now, why is Vonones elected? The question is, he's an old guy, why is he in charge now?
Yeah.
Well, the thing is that based on where Vonones lives and what happens to Gatarzes, we can assume that the Hyrcanian party didn't have enough power to protect Gatarzes.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why Gatarzes' sons aren't made rulers. That's why it's just skipped. And it looks like the Western party had been defeated because Meherdates, which was defeated by Gatarzes, so they were out of the game. The Central party was out of the game, so that only leaves people in the East, which are the Eastern party headed by the Suren family. And this also kind of makes sense because they're the ones that supported Artabanus III in the first place. So, why not support his brother? Artabanus did a good job. Vonones is probably going to do fine as well. And hey, also, a general advantage is that he's a man in his 70s. Perhaps the balance of power amongst the nobles was a bit shaky, so they thought, let's just keep somebody to keep the throne warm for 2 years, and then
That's so mean.
Then we can choose for
Oh my
real.
god. Replaceable.
So yeah, it was not fun, but it doesn't look like many people trust Vonones to do a great job. They think he'll do. It'll be fine, won't it?
I see.
So yeah, they're following a bit of your plans, which are just, yeah, he'll do. Don't have high hopes, but it's better than nothing, I suppose. We need a king. So yeah, at last, in spring of 51 AD, Vonones II is crowned as king of the whole empire.
Mm-hmm.
And Serial, what do you think is the first thing he has to deal with?
Are there other contenders? Potential usurpers?
That's an important point.
Yeah.
Vonones looks around the empire and sees that, well, luckily in the west, there are no contenders. Those nobles have been defeated in a civil war.
Mm-hmm.
In the middle, it looks like there's nobody powerful or ambitious enough to make it. So nobody shows up. And the east are the people who elected him. So
yeah,
he seems to be fine for now. For the next 5 seconds, the nobles seem to have agreed on somebody.
because didn't we have it was strange that he was elected, because didn't we have someone better?
I mean, there were Gatarzes' children who,
Right.
he just won a civil war, why not them? Well, probably just because the nobles that supported Gatarzes just didn't want to vote for them.
Mm-hmm.
So, for whatever reason, it seems that Vonones is alone on the throne, and the great thing is that he has a son. He has a son called Vologases. Now, Vologases is a young, ambitious man who has big plans for the empire. He thinks that, yes, these constant civil wars will not do. What we need to do is have one strong empire. Oh, and also we should take care of Armenia. The Romans have had it for too long. Armenia is rightfully ours.
Again,
Let's break it down.
because we can't just let it go.
Yep. Because, hey, it was ours at the beginning. You guys came and took it from us. No, wait, it was ours. No, wait, it was ours. And so Vologases decides that he also doesn't really trust his father, Vonones. So he starts talking to all the nobles. He starts rubbing elbows, schmoozing, giving out the Ferrero Rochers. all that sort of thing. And he tries to convince the nobles that even though he might not be the favorite choice of everybody, he is definitely the one that is most capable. He can take over the armies, he can take over the throne, and make sure that all the empire will prosper and be successful.
Mm-hmm.
And it looks like Vologases is convincing enough, either because of his own personal charisma or just because of the, general vibes he gives off, that the nobles agree that yes, he is going to be the next king as soon as Vonones dies.
Okay.
And then we get a quote about Vonones' reign from Tacitus, a Roman historian who is just, mentioning how the reign is going.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Tacitus says, Vonones, then viceroy of Media, was called to the throne. No successes and no reverses entitled him to mention. He completed a short, inglorious, and perfunctory reign, and the Parthian Empire devolved upon his son Vologases. Which is to say, when Vonones became king, he didn't really do much. He just lasted a couple months, then he died, and his son took the throne.
Yeah.
The end.
I am not surprised. Yeah.
Yes. So they did need somebody to keep the throne warm for a couple months.
Literally.
Vonones did the job. The end. Are you ready to rate him, Serial?
We've been recording for 15 minutes.
Yeah, it's fine.
All right. Yeah.
But don't worry, Vologases next time, he's a big one. So
ooh, okay, interesting.
strap in for that. I guess it'll be first week of December, but you'll see how that goes. Okay, so let's begin. Our first category is final moments. How interesting was his death? Being an old man and just dying of old age.
Not at all. 0.
No, 0. Let's go. 0 and 0. 0 out of 10 for final moments. Next category is battle hardness. How good was he at war and fighting? He didn't. He explicitly did not get involved in any civil war. He just chilled for a whole lot. So I'm going for a 0. I guess you too.
Yep.
0, 0. 0 out of 20 for battle hardness. Next category is scheminess. How good was he at plots and manipulations? Not at all that we could tell. He just was there. He did stuff, presumably, but who knows. So, with a 0 and a 0, he gets a 0 out of 20 for scheminess. Our next category is shock factor. How shocking was this man? He just stayed out of all the civil wars and stayed out of all the conflicts and just became king because he was elected and everybody thought, yeah, he'll do. I'm gonna go for a 0.
Yeah, the same. I don't know what you want me to say. I'm just I guess.
Yeah, so 0 and a 0, 0 out of 20 for shock factor. Our next category is Aaron Shine. How good was he at ruling the empire in general and Iran in particular? He didn't make things worse. He had a clean succession on the way in and on the way out. That was nice. He didn't have much time to really influence anything.
Yep.
He didn't make things worse by participating in civil wars. I'm wondering if to give him a 1. What are you thinking, Sarah? He didn't make things actively worse, but he didn't really make much of an impact.
Yeah, I don't... nothing happened. Was this a 5 when, things just stay as they are?
We usually do 5 when things just stay, but only if they had some time. If he rules for 20 years and the empire stays the same.
Yeah, that's the thing.
That
it's just
effort.
It didn't get worse. Nothing good happened.
Yeah, exactly. But, we give child kings a 0 because they just... Yeah, they got murdered after 2 months and that happened. I'm sorry, but... Yeah, I think I might give him, a 1 because the successions are clean, but that's it, really. Because it's not that he's usurped after 3 months. He just dies.
Yeah.
So what are you doing? Are you matching with a 1 or just going with a 0?
No, I have nothing to say. Nothing happened. I mean, it would have been really impressive if he had managed to destroy the empire in a month.
Yeah.
I have to say.
People have tried. People have tried and succeeded to destroy the empire, but, So you're staying with a 0 then. I'm just going to be kind and give him a 1. So with a 1 and a 0, he gets a 1 out of 20 for Aaron Shine. Our next category is Face of Faces. What do you think this man looked like? One thing in his favor, his face looks cool.
Okay.
So that's good. We have a slight difference, which is nice.
Interesting. I will make a little drawing and,
Yes.
and tell you.
Draw an old man who completed a short, inglorious, and perfunctory reign.
That is so rough.
It's just, yeah, I guess you were around. I guess you're technically count. To be fair, we're also being very rough on him because, you can't expect too much when you're the guy who was just elected because we needed a break. So there you go. So yeah, we'll see.
Honestly, I have been surprised at how little he's lasted. Like, I knew it would be a short reign. Like, I wasn't expecting, And, like, he could have still lived for, like, 20 more years and, like, done a great job. I don't know how old he actually was, but, like, I did not expect this. This is, like, ridiculously worthless.
Yes,
like,
this is just speed
why not
running
just elect his son?
kingdom.
I'm so confused.
I guess they were an obscure enough family that it didn't really matter, and his son just did a good enough job convincing everybody thanks to his father's power. Because they were, they were like provincial nobles, and
They wouldn't have just gotten the son if it weren't for his dad.
yeah, maybe nobody really knew the son first,
Oh, I
and they
see.
thought, oh yeah, this old guy will do, and then they're like, oh wait, his son is actually really capable. Okay, let's vote for him.
Well, when has that been the reason why the nobles vote? Never.
Well, his son is capable, so that's nice. They were lucky this time. We'll see how the nobles deal with somebody who's capable, how quickly they try to destroy him, because it's easier to have somebody incompetent. Okay, Serial has finished their drawing. Let me pick it up and describe it to you all. Nice, I like that. So, what we have, dear listeners, is just a floating diadem, just flitting in the air as if dropped from a height or from somebody's head, perhaps. And there is text which says, all right, and now... Wait, but where is he? What do you mean we need another one? We just got this one. Which, to be fair, is the attitude everybody would have towards Vonones II. It's impressive he even existed. So yeah, if you want to look at this, you can go in the notes of the episode, in the description of the podcast episode. Or you can go to our website and look at Serial's portrait gallery. Or you can subscribe to our Patreon and go on our Discord and see it in the Face of Faces section.
Yeah.
Now let me show Serial what he actually looked like, and they can tell us if they are impressed, at the very least.
Ooh, it's a front-facing one. Nice.
Yay!
I do like
also,
it.
it's a new hat.
Yeah,
which I
it's a
quite
really
like.
cool hat.
It's a good hat.
So it's a front-facing portrait of a man with a mustache. I don't really see a beard, I assume.
That is
Maybe?
surprising, because usually no beard is a young man.
Yeah, but it's like a
he's
prominent
definitely not.
mustache, right? And a hat that has like ear covers and then wraparound lines around the forehead and stuff, and then like the diadem going like over the hat, and then you see the like ends poking out the sides, and then some decorations on top, and there's 2 6-pointed stars on each side of the face.
Yeah, always nice to have some stars. I love how the ends of the diadem make it look like he has bunny ears.
Yeah.
That's just very good.
That's really cool. I like this. This is very charming, actually.
So this is nice, If there's one thing about Vonones that is charming, it's his coin.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think this is quite a nice one. It's different from the others. It's nice because it's front-facing. We get a cool hat. The mustache instead of a beard is interesting. I like that.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I like the flowy diadem. What is your scoring here, Serial?
Like a 7. He
7?
has to get some points.
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
That is the concern. I'm gonna go for a... You know what? I'm gonna match your 7, actually. I was about to say 6, but I think the hat wins me over. So, nice. Good job, Vonones. You did get some points. And yeah, so with a 7 and a 7, he gets a 3.5 out of 5 for Face of Faces. Our next category is lengthiness. How long do you think he reigned?
2 months.
Ooh, you underestimate him, Serial.
Okay,
He reigned
3.
for a full 4 months.
Okay. Oh, man, I double what I said. That's...
Yeah, I know.
Oof.
You're really disrespecting our poor man. So yeah, with a total of 4 months, divide that by 10 years, that gives him a 0.033 out of 5 points for lengthiness, which leads him to a grand total of 4.53 out of 100 for his total score, which places him second to last, just above Xerxes II and below Antiochus the Child, which is really saying something. And he just saves himself because he has a nice image.
Yep.
He reigned more than Xerxes II, but had a less interesting death. So he's just barely getting past the last position by the skin of his teeth. And our final question is, does he have a nice enough coin? Is he short-lived enough? Is he not a terrible person, apparently, enough to be called a Shahanshah? Or is he just a Shahanah?
I mean, maybe for like the fun of it, but no.
Yeah, no, he's not even just so bad that he's good. He's just like, he lived, he died, and everybody is here for Vologases. Everybody's just waiting for Vologases the First, which suggests there will be more than one. I mean, there are people who beat Vonones' final score just with their lengthiness, which is saying something.
Fair enough.
Which is kind of harsh, but yeah. Okay, so that is the end of our episode today.
Well,
thank you for joining us. We hope you had fun despite it being short. If you'd like to support our podcast, we have a way to do that. You can join our new patron, Kwong Ingyuan, and they and many others have the possibility to listen to our extra episodes, which are on some of the kings around Mithridates II, such as Mithridates the Great of Pontus, Han Wudi of China. Or now, coming just next week, is going to be Alcibiades, our special episode where you want to hear about what this bisexual disaster man got up to. It's a lot of disasters, certainly. Please join, it's fun. If instead you'd rather not support us monetarily, that's fine. We just appreciate if you can give us a review on your podcast app of choice so that other people can know that we exist and we enjoy reading your messages. But yeah, I think this episode has already been long enough. We hope you have a lovely week. We'll see you next time with Vologases I. I promise he's a lot better, does a lot cooler stuff. Have a good one, and goodbye.
Bye.